The Ford plant on Michigan Avenue in Wayne, where we find a Where's Waldo-esque hornblower out on strike.
We got to do what we got to do. I'd rather be working, but, we got to do what we got to do.
Have you anyone you've seen a strike before?
No, not through Ford. I've never been involved in it. I started in 1999.
Got off of work, went straight here. It's about a 45-minute drive.
They're doing well, and they think we're the bottom feeders. We're touching cars that we can't even afford. I have a hard time going to the grocery store. I struggle every day.
Been a week, the United Auto Workers want a big pay raise, what they gave up when two of the big three went bankrupt during the recession, and an end to the two-tier wage scale.
I was on a tier for 3 years when I first hired in, but with the promise of making full wage in 3 years. Now, it's 8 years before you get to full, and that's unrealistic. How can a young person and a young family, survive on $18 an hour? Just not happening in today's world.
That is why we are launching a new kind of strike against Ford, GM, and Stellantis. We're calling it the stand-up strike.
An innovation in striking hit all three car makers at once, one plant each. If the talks drag on, strike more plants as needed.
It is a change in tenor, which I think is more fitting with the times.
Professor Merrick Masters, Wayne State School of Business, specializing in labor issues.
A lot of people call what's going on right now historic. Where does this stand in terms of disputes in labor history?
Well, it is reminiscent of the sit-down strikes of the 1936, 1937 era.
It started up in Flint, not standing up, sitting down. Inside, they slept over, counting the days until General Motors gave in. The UAW suddenly a labor powerhouse. Other workers sat down too, like these women at a Woolworth's department store. Americans' middle class was born.
These were strikes that were aimed at having a particularly crippling effect on businesses and also protecting the workers so that they can ensure that the companies weren't able to continue operations and thereby subvert the purpose of the strike.
More strikes, better contracts, labor flexed its muscles for decades. Then the decline, imports thrashing market share, factories closed. The latest strike, GM in 2019 for 6 weeks. Now the big three are back to profitability in a big way. Workers demanding their fair share again.
Seems almost like it's kind of a reset if we're looking back to the original strikes of old.
I think this is a reset for society. We've gotten used to being rather complacent about asking for more for workers.
It seems like a lot of the population is sympathetic to this strike right now.
It certainly does, based on the polls that have been done. A large number of people in the general public are sympathetic to the strikers, and also, I think, to labor in general.
And what about the big raises in general? What do you think we'll see here with this new contract?
I think that the UAW, I would be surprised if they settle for anything really less than 30%.
But what is the general future of organized labor? Is it growing? Is it staying level?
It's in continual decline. I don't see that reversing, notwithstanding the rise in activism.
Well, some might say that what happens now, if there's more success now with the UAW getting more of what they demand, that might bring more unions to bear.
That has to be uppermost on the UAW's mind. It's got to be able to organize the foreign transplants. It's got to be able to organize the Teslas and Rivians. If it's not, then it's going to continually see its position in auto weaken.
Meanwhile, another pay issue, the salaries of top execs, earning many, many millions a year.
CEO pay has skyrocketed by 40%.
That seems very unfair. It's like, what do they do to merit that much money? I really would like to know.
So far, Union President Shawn Fain not happy how negotiations are going.
Everything they're looking for in this document is about concessions. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do with their proposal. I'm going to file it in its proper place, because that's where it belongs, the trash, because that's what it is.
Well, Sean Fain might be seen as somewhat combative, confrontational. What's your take on that?
I think he's in the finest tradition of labor, being a strong advocate for unions and working people, and realizing that means that you have to stand up and wage a fight when you think it's the appropriate moment for a cause that you believe in.
In their economy, one of our workers would have to work 400 years to make what a CEO makes in 1 year.
I wouldn't characterize him as a radical or a revolutionary or anything by that stretch of the imagination.
So listen, I've heard the nonsense from some Big Three executives and some of their friends in the media about my foul mouth or theatrics or this or that. I want you all to know something. I don't do these updates because I just want to blow off some steam about insulting proposals. I do these updates because our strength as a union is in our membership.
It feels like the union is trying to take the power back on how it used to be. Everything that's going on, it kind of reminds me of the days of Walter Reuther, the fourth president of the UAW. Now, a lot of companies today that aren't even union wouldn't even have the benefits that they have today if it wasn't for what Walter Reuther fought for.
It's also really part of American labor culture, bringing us the great middle class.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And you don't get things without pain and suffering. That's the unfortunate part of human life. It's also important to remember, I would add this, the workers today are much better off than they were in the 1930s. They have decent pay and they have benefits, even though they may not like the way all their benefits are structured. They've got good health care and they have defined contribution pension plans or retirement plans. So, I mean, this is a much different era.
I have been clear with the Big Three every step of the way, and I'm going to be crystal clear again right now. If we don't make serious progress by noon on Friday, September 22nd, more locals will be called on to stand up and join the strike.
But do we have that great disparity of income from the top to the bottom like we did back then?
Oh, yes. In fact, we have a concentration of wealth, which is very reminiscent of that. So the same old issues that have always haunted person kind are still with us.
Watch One Detroit, Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.